Episode 71 of Enemy of the State's Dank Pod Stash, a coronavirus brainstorm with some smart dudes. Got a lot of good info coming your way. Before we get started, the Dank Pod Stash is officially sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. It's time to get hashtag Boogaloo ready, or just prepper ready and in fighting shape. Greg Papanikolaou is going to get you there with personalized meal plans, training, group support, and tons of amazing fitness and motivational resources and knowledge, including the Project Sparta Facebook group. You can go to anarchyliftingcoach.com and learn more about Greg's work. When you're ready to get signed up and get fit, go to gregpapanikolaou.clickfunnels.com/opt-in and get started on your path to help. Those links are in the description. Check them out. And now, you know what? I'm in Project Sparta now. I'm already dropping weight, getting more muscular, feeling great. Great menu. It's a solid diet. And I got to say, I was doing at-home workouts, and I finally took the plunge and went back to the gym. So much better. I would recommend that when you join Anarchy Fitness. It's great. You don't want to be that guy that sits around and talks about change, whether it's your health, the Boogaloo, prepping, no matter what it is. Get up, start learning, drilling, training, practicing, prepping. One of the most important parts of all that, no matter what for, is your physical health. Get to anarchyliftingcoach.com now and get after it. We also have a special offer for our listeners from friend of the show, author and content creator Shane Radliff of Liberty Under Attack Publications. You can take 10% off your order by using coupon code DANK10. Just go to libertyunderattack.com. They have books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategies, solutions, and more. Current books include #Agora, Second Realm book on strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's very own Vanu, a strategy for self-liberation. They also offer assistance to new authors throughout the publishing process, including editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook productions. That's Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story. Find your freedom. Also, shout out to Bad Moon Hemp. Check out badmoonhemp.wordpress.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your handmade hemp needs. I use their beard oil and beard balm. It's amazing stuff. And congratulations to the proprietor on your new baby. Beautiful baby. Congratulations. All right, let's jump into episode 71 of the Dank Pod Stash.
Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Pod Stash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Pod Stash. Check out thedankpodstash.com to find every episode of the Dank Pod Stash, links to support the show via our BitBacker and Patreon, Dank Pod Stash merchandise, and much more. If you'd like to advertise on the Dank Pod Stash, email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com. Welcome to episode 71 of Enemy of the State's Dank Pod Stash. Kind of an impromptu episode to do some coronavirus brainstorming. And as you can see, there's more people than usual. This was going to be a hot toast, but we decided to expand it into a full episode. And on the top left, we have former guest Dennis Wiscount. Bottom left, former guest and co-host of Dank Pod Stash Hot Toast, Daniel Johnson. And bottom right, the man, the myth, the legend, Mitch McMitch. All right, so everybody's talking about coronavirus. It doesn't seem like as many people are talking about it as should be talking about it. It seems like it's, I don't know, I guess it depends on how you look at it. It's either played down or it's super played up, depending on the circles you're in. So we're going to try to wade through that. We have a bunch of different articles that we've all been looking over, and we're going to focus on trying to pick out the relevant information, see what's true, see what's actually happening, both in China and here as far as preparedness and dealing with the situation, a number of infections, and more and more and more. And then definitely bust into some ideas for preparation, just in case it becomes an actual, what would it be called, a pandemic, I guess, a panic situation. So let's see. I know, Mitch, you've been posting a lot about a lot of information that you've taken and kind of figured out and gone through yourself, which is really interesting, and come to a lot of conclusions. So why don't you start laying it out a little bit with what you see?
Well, I think the first thing that caught my eye
and everybody else who seems to be worried about it is China's response to it. The mass quarantines, and now, of course, we have video everywhere. And I know it's a little harder to access the internet and over there, but stuff still seeps through the cracks, and just the stuff you see and even the stuff you hear. That's what I think is the most worrisome thing. As far as their numbers, I don't know if we can trust their numbers, but I don't know if we can, because I think it was Peak Prosperity on YouTube who has something about, he posted something up on like every video saying the curve of how many people are infected, how many people are dying is like a consistent percentage each time. So it's like, are they just like throwing out like a consistent number and making everyone believe that it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
So really we have a bunch of different numbers as far as like mortality rate, the R naught. Really, it's hard to say this early, but basically it seems like too many people, I think, are saying this is a 2% mortality rate, and they're using total amount of cases, ongoing cases, and deaths. But you can't use that as an equation to find 2%. You have to use end results only, or small case studies to find a mortality rate. So if you're taking the total confirmed cases, most of which are ongoing, then you're pretty much assuming that all of those people are going to be survivors when you're factoring in death rate. So everybody keeps regurgitating that 2% mortality rate, and it's kind of driving me crazy. Could it be 2% at the end of the day? Maybe. I don't know. But there's just too much information going back and forth for us to really say anything. And that's my interpretation. But the alarming thing is China's response to it.
Right. Yeah. What was it? 2 hospitals in 2 days? Were they able to complete those? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I think they did.
That's crazy.
But they're hardly hospitals, is what I'm hearing too.
Sure.
Like there's not much treatment going on in those hospitals, and it seems, at least if the translations are right on the videos that I'm seeing of people inside those hospitals, but the conditions don't seem to be very hospital-like. It's just a bunch of beds.
Right.
But I don't know.
How about you, Dennis? I know you've been looking over a lot of info and sending it over to me as well, so I'm sure you can add on that.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'll get snips from like 4chan, and I know you might laugh at that, but there's guys posting timestamps. I think I sent it to you that they said they were in those laboratories in Wuhan, and they were kind of, just to go back on the 2% thing, they were saying it's much worse than what the Chinese government is putting out there. I know I've seen, aside from the articles that Mitch brought up, that those pictures of the whether it was police or military in China, like they're loading up pistols while they're putting their safe suits on before they go in these houses, and it's a little bit alarming. I agree with Mitch in terms of how they're responding to it. It's not as Hippocratic, if I want to be diplomatic about it, if that makes sense.
Sure. I think too, the information, let's talk about where it came from, because at first it was the whole bat soup meme. They thought it was from, bats, kind of like that movie.
Contagion.
Yeah, Contagion, which was literally
Yes.
bat dropping a piece of banana into the pig pens and then the pigs being slaughtered. And
yes.
Yeah, that was a great movie. But
yes.
I think it's come out since pretty solidly that it's actually a lab-created virus from 2 possible lab sources in Wuhan.
Right.
Okay. So we got that all together, and that seems a lot more sinister, obviously, than coming from bat soup or something fucking stupid like that, although possible.
don't forget that Harvard professor that was arrested. They got his two, what were they called? His apprentice, or I can't think of the right word, forgive me. But the two people under him were actually, one of them was part of the Chinese army, and the other one, he already got to China, and the other guy got busted at the airport trying to smuggle samples out of the country. Like how dark is that?
Yeah.
And I mean, that was another thing they're not really talking about, which I don't know if that's connected or not, because they sort of strung it that this Harvard professor might or might not have set up the same lab in Wuhan. Sorry.
So he was connected to setting up the lab. Is that what the Harvard professor was, or what were they working on?
That's just it. Nobody's really said. There was a brief on the Department of Defense about it, and it kind of went around. Mitch might know better than me, or Daniel, but it kind of went like fire around, like, people like us. And then nothing from major U.S. government media outlets. And then like a day or two later, they said he posted like his $1 million bail.
Jeez.
I guess what they got him on was he was getting regular payments from China. I think it was like $50,000 a month or something like that. Yeah, and
something like
he
that.
wasn't declaring that. Yeah, he wasn't declaring it to the U.S. government, and that's what they got him on. And that was sort of what the DoD brief said. And they picked off one of his assistants. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Go. You sound like you had some stuff to say about that one, Mitch. You had more info on that.
Yes, please.
I don't know too much about the Harvard thing other than what he just said, but as far as it being from the lab, I know that the lab is, well, I've heard two different things. It's either 8 miles away from that market where they say it all started, or it's 20 miles away. Either way, that's not that far away. But
No.
what kind of gives it credibility, or I don't know, maybe evidence towards credibility, is the fact that back in 2017, when that I think it's a BSL-4 lab, it's called, just where they handle the worst pathogens in the world. Back when that opened up in Wuhan, there was a article in Nature where, I don't remember who was concerned, but there were people concerned about China opening up a lab, a BSL-4 lab, because in the past, supposedly SARS had leaked from their facilities in the past. And that was back in 2017. Yeah. So you read this article and then you see what's happening now, and it's, miles away from where it supposedly started. It's fishy. I don't know if, is it intentional? If it is from the lab, that's another question. Was it just a mistake, a negligence?
Well,
I don't know.
Let's jump into, our hypotheses on that then, because it is interesting that this all popped up in such a big way. And right as it did, the Hong Kong protests and protesters kind of dropped right off the map. So it could be distraction, or it could be a weapon used against them. And then also from those images from 4chan that you sent me, Dennis, the time-stamped ones, which I consider pretty legit, because when they do that, those guys on 4chan that timestamp and then go after people like they went after Shia LaBeouf's flag, like they can do some serious shit. But they were saying
they can play hide and seek.
Yeah. They were saying the treatment in the civilian hospitals was not very good, and people were staying there and not being released, whereas if there was anybody in military or government, they would be treated only by military or government doctors, and they'd be in and out. So that, that's pretty nefarious.
Yes.
Well, go ahead.
Say one more
Sorry,
time.
I didn't know if you were saying something.
No, go ahead.
I lost my train of thought, so it doesn't matter now.
No worries. Dan's over there grilling. I know he has questions about all this. Maybe, there you go. He's on mute. He's done screwing around with the cheese.
Sorry, I'm grilling up some burgers. I had no idea about the that this could possibly be something made in the lab. Just I haven't done a ton of research on this or looked up anything. I found out that SARS, or should I say, I can't remember. Is it SARS that is a strain of the coronavirus, or is it vice versa? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a coronavirus. SARS is, and MERS.
Okay. It's my question was like, why is this popping up right after these Hong Kong protesters, this whole deal, and now you're not hearing anything about them. And the question I posed to Dennis and Nick today was, is there genocide going on in the country? It would be very difficult to hide that, and so would it be that they are suppressing these political dissidents and saying that they have this illness and just kind of hauling them away, and using coronavirus as this mask to suppress this uprising in Hong Kong. That was my question. I don't know. I just find it interesting that the timing is like this.
Yeah.
I think it would be mostly a suppression of information and news out of Hong Kong, because I haven't seen a whole ton of cases come out of Hong Kong. So it would be more that kind of suppression than actually, directly infecting the Hong Kong protesters, unless that's not making the news.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless not very many people are actually being infected, and they're just using, and maybe there is this coronavirus going on, but they're saying, hey, let's take this opportunity to haul off people that that are an enemy to us, and let's just say it's the coronavirus. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was my question. I wouldn't put it past China.
The thing that
I don't
go
think.
ahead, Mitch.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you
No, go ahead, Mitch.
No. I don't think it was. I don't think the whole thing is meant to stop protests in Hong Kong. But I don't know for sure, of course. But I think they're using it as an excuse to silence people, definitely. But I don't think the whole thing's set off for that. I don't think China would be risking their economy, especially in the fragile state it supposedly is in, by doing this, not on purpose. So it's my hypothesis or whatever, that this was an accident, or it could be totally natural. I don't know. It's one of the two, in my opinion, and they're taking extreme measures and capitalizing on it by using it to silence people. That's my guess.
Sure.
Okay.
That's very possible. And I think it's spread to it. It's at least 6 countries. I'm not sure how many more it's spread to since the last update that I saw. I know it's in the U.S., France and Germany, the U.K., somewhere in the South Pacific, and obviously in China. Do you guys have any more places that you know of?
There's like 26.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, there's like 20. There's only a couple cases in some of them, like Sri Lanka, Sweden, Finland, Belgium, Cambodia, Nepal, Spain, Russia, UK, India, Philippines, Italy, United Arab Emirates, Canada, Macau, France, Vietnam, Germany, Australia, Malaysia, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Thailand, Singapore, mainland China, and I don't see North Korea on there, but I heard North Korea also has their first case. So
interesting. And
they're only across the river, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
And there's only a few cases in those, but from what I'm reading, there's at least 11 diagnosed cases in the U.S., which is interesting. That was another thing that I found really interesting, because there was one in Seattle. I know there's one in Phoenix and I think Illinois, a bunch of other places. But all this news about it came out before these people came back to the U.S. from China, from where they were. And yet these flights weren't quarantined. They kind of just let people go on their merry fucking way. And now they're trying to track down the people they were in contact with. And now also they're running everybody through military quarantine, I guess, when they come back, which is, I don't know, it seems strange to me.
Yeah.
You're awful quiet over there, Dennis. I know you got more to say.
Sorry, I was still stuck on what Mitch was talking about in terms of like China's economy.
Sure.
I think there's an old Texas saying, if it ain't makes sense, there's money involved. And I totally forgot about this point till Mitch said it, but like their economy is not doing so hot. And if you rely on being an industrialized nation, albeit a quasi half fake capitalist, half communist, their whole economy could just tip over because nobody wants to trade with them if they've got a deadly pandemic running around. I mean, you could block off travel and everything, but the average person's mind might look at a box that says from China and they think it's like going to jump out at them like a face hugger. I mean, not everybody is as versed in infectious diseases, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, because that meme's going around where, don't pop your bubble wrap from China. You know where they put that air in.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, not just people not wanting to trade with them, but I mean, they're stopping production of a lot of stuff. Like Disneyland even shut down there. Hyundai plants, IKEAs, Nikes, Starbucks, et cetera, et cetera. Everything's just shutting down. I mean, it's just terrible situation for the economy. I don't think they do this on purpose. So,
yeah.
That's
sort of where...
Is it too tinfoil hattish to think that maybe another country had a hand in releasing it there then to break China's economy?
Countries have done worse.
Yeah, the link with the
we'll
Harvard
see if it's
professor.
worse, but yeah.
That link with the Harvard
I'm just gonna
professor
say
is
it.
interesting.
Yes. But do you think we'd ever actually hear anything from it? Like, it seems way too James Bond level villain to like get out to the
maybe in 80
public.
years from now in a documentary.
Yeah, there we go. But I got to try to make it to 95 or 100 to see if it comes out.
Yeah.
Do I need to be the one that says it was the U.S. that did it?
Oh, let's see it. Maybe.
It could be. It could be. So, okay. So the other thing that we definitely wanted to address was with the spread of this. I know we've seen in that 4chan image that you sent me, Dennis, and then I think in other articles and whatnot, that it's taking specialized facilities to handle a lot of these cases, and most hospitals don't have the volume of those facilities to handle the volume of incoming patients if it were to spread in a big way. And so that might spell disaster just for everyday people, everyday you and me, if it starts taking hold here in the U.S. and as we see in China, right?
I know with hospitals, because I just heard this like a couple weeks ago when we had a bad snowstorm. My wife works for Geisinger, which is in Pennsylvania near Danville, and there's a bad accident in I-80, and the hospital literally declared a closed block. They would not take any more patients in because they were literally inundated with like a 26-car pile up of people. So to sort of use that parable, if you suddenly have a bunch of people that are infected, from like a psychological perspective, like even my wife, she's a pediatrician, she's getting like the damn, I can't think of the word, but she's getting the people that like literally their kid gets the sniffles and they're like, oh, is it coronavirus? Can you test for that? And you will have those people versus the people that may actually have it. And if you sort of bum rush all the medical facilities, they're going to be pretty inundated. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just as a small example.
Yeah, no way. Our hospitals aren't ready.
Right.
No, I mean the World Health Organization. I didn't have a link to this to send to you guys, but it was on a Reddit post, but the video was like embedded. So, but Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove, hope I'm saying that right. She said that overall, from data from 17,000 cases, 82% of cases are mild, 15% are severe, and 3% are classified as critical. So that's 18% severe. If that breaks loose here, our hospitals, they're not ready for that at all. And I have some experience because I used to work at a hospital. I wasn't involved in any of the like literal healthcare aspect of it, but more behind the scenes kind of stuff. And I mean, they're a shit show. They don't know what they're like doing half the time. Like, just it's terrible. And that's really what I think is the worst part about this virus, is just how many people it sends to what would, I guess, urgent care or ICU. Like anywhere from 18 to 26%. From 18% would be the World Health, and then some case study from Ground Zero said 26% out of 138 people needed hospitalization. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it would just be a complete overrun and chaos, and there wouldn't be any way to check the spread. I know we have FEMA camps. Everybody knows their FEMA zone, right? Just in case. Jump in those plastic and concrete coffins, because I think that's what would probably end up happening, obviously, if the hospitals were too full of people, as they'd start rounding up people for FEMA camps and whatnot. And so that's another question, too, is how they handle it. Because I'd imagine the U.S. would probably handle it a little bit differently than China. I don't know if you guys saw the video of the guys in the full bunny suits, whatever the fuck they're called, with guns going and grabbing a couple off the street and shoving them into a metal box in the back of a pickup truck and driving away while the woman's screaming. Yes. Or people in the suits with machine guns hopping out of what was supposedly an ambulance and patrolling the streets and stuff. What is up with that? Why are they taking guns out if they're there to help people? And isn't China already disarmed? Like, why would they need guns against a disarmed population?
They're not. It's my belief that they're. I think they're lying about the situation there, and I think it's way worse than they're leading on or telling the world. And why are we seeing guys with guns, machine guns, jump out of cars? I've seen those videos. It's like, what? I mean, they got the full body suits on and they're carrying rifles in the streets. Come on. Why is that happening? Like, I get it that some people aren't going to want to go to quarantine and stuff, but like that, who said it? Like the guy, the 4chan thing said that people are going and not returning. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that from other people too. They're going to these quarantine places and they're not, I mean, that's it for communication with them. They're just gone. So a little fishy.
Yeah, just a little bit, huh? Yeah, I don't know. It smells fishy to me, and I'm not sure what that means. Other than maybe what we were talking about earlier about rounding up political dissidents or something like that, or people who made the wrong Facebook posts, or have too low of a score on the Chinese social credit system. It's interesting looking at all that and seeing it begin to be mirrored over here as well. That's, I think, besides dying of a global pandemic, that using it from that angle is the thing that worries me the most. And the only thing you can really do in either situation is something that we talk about on the show. No matter who's on the show, I talk about prepping in one form or another. And I know that, Mitch, you're into prepping for sure. I think pretty much all of us here are into it to a certain extent. And you were saying, Mitch, it's time to stock up on food and water. And I imagine that's in the event of a large-scale infection and, utilities start going down, grocery stores are cleared out from panic and whatnot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think too many people are focused on buying up masks, and I don't know. Maybe they're buying food and water too, but buy food first before anything. Water is a little easier to come by, depending on where you are. But yeah, I mean, I see so much focus on N95 masks and how like Home Depot is like out and Walmart is out. Even the World Health Organization said there's a problem when people are hoarding. People in low risk countries are hoarding like medical supplies and equipment like N95 masks, but then these high risk countries are running out. And I mean, you know, screw the World Health Organization. I mean, prepare no matter what. But yeah, worry about food. That's like the number one worry for me is food.
Sure.
Yeah.
Buy canned stuff.
Right, because the grocery stores are usually the first places to clear out. I was talking about that with the wife.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Plus, I mean, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Even if they don't run out, you don't want to be going out as much as possible too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there's an outbreak, you want to minimize as much exposure as possible. I mean, even if there isn't quarantines, just do what you can to minimize as much exposure to the public as possible. Because you see all these people, like in the beginning when this started to blow up over in China, you see all these people lined up in the hospitals, all like just shoulder to shoulder next to each other, waiting for treatment. It's like, well, if most of you aren't sick, you probably are now.
Yeah.
Like,
Just been exposed to something.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, like you just prepare to stay away from people.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a perfect bug-in scenario as opposed to bugging out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was talking with the wife about that after seeing your post, because we stock up what we can, but you know, it never feels like enough. So I'm like, maybe we need to dump a little extra money into it this month for what we're doing to have a good stockpile prepared. And I was thinking about running the house on a generator, getting a bigger generator. But I imagine that food and water are going to be the first immediate concerns, and utilities and whatnot would probably stay on for quite a while. It would have to reach a really serious level of collapse for utilities and whatnot to go down, because they'll most likely be manned with people, and they'll be their own quarantine zones because of how important the infrastructure is anyway. So food and water, ammo, shoot on site. Don't let anybody wearing a mask or anybody in general come on your property. But it's funny too, because the masks are definitely selling out. My parents were going to come up and visit. They didn't end up coming. My dad hurt his back. They had to stay in Arizona. But they were looking for masks for travel because, you know, an airplane besides a hospital is another great place to pick up whatever's going around. And they were going to be flying out of Phoenix Airport, which they had a case come in through the Phoenix Airport already. And I think they found one pack of masks left at a Lowe's, and that's it. And everything else was completely sold out. So it's happening at least slightly.
Yeah.
And don't forget, supposedly you can catch this by any mucous membrane. That also includes your eyes. So you can just as easily get infected by not covering your eyes as you do your face. I think masks are best for people. I mean, wear them if you got them, if this goes crazy, but masks are best for people who have infected or who are infected, so they don't spread it even more. But yeah, don't forget goggles. You might look like a goofball, but who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're protecting yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's one reason I'm really happy not to live in a city or even town anymore, to live way the hell away from all of that, because that stuff bothers me.
Big plus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Daniel, you're just over there eating. What you got?
No, I was just listening. I was thinking about the preparing with food and water. You know, I'm in Utah, and the big thing in Utah is just Mormons, obviously, and one of the things they push is being prepared. You know, food storage and everything. I just keep an eye on. I would just say keep an eye on legislation, because there have been times where it's never passed, but it has been brought up before, where certain legislatures will propose banning food storage and going house to house. I know several years ago they tried to do that in Hawaii. It never passed, but yeah, I've heard about people proposing it here in Utah. So just keep an eye on that, and because I mean, obviously, people like us are gonna not care about that because they can't morally do that, but be prepared to defend yourself because it could be against the law.
Right. You never know what's going to come down the
Yes.
pipelines during a state of emergency. I know I've brought it up many times, but one thing that comes up in states of emergency like Katrina is what I usually bring up is door-to-door gun confiscations for the safety of the public. I'm wondering, Daniel, what reasons could they possibly have for banning long-term food storage? Do you remember any of the language from the
so the article was hoarding. It just I think just because of the limited resources that are in Hawaii. This was from Hawaii, but there was something a few years ago that was proposed in Utah to do it because another earthquake could happen, and you can't. It was trying to prevent people from buying a lot off the shelves, and it was I can't remember the exact language, but this kind of stuff has been talked about. Essentially it was hoarding. That was the language they used, and they wanted to prevent people from hoarding so that everybody could get some. But it's like, what is hoarding? How arbitrary and subjective is that?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Dennis, you had mentioned preparing in a way for a pandemic or something when we talked about this a while ago. I don't know if you were able to get info together for that or not, but what do you got?
So my form of prepping, especially in a pandemic, and you guys can feel free to agree, disagree, doesn't matter, is your society and more or less your personal circle sort of changes drastically because it's easy to fight the state because the state thinks, acts, and feels somewhat similar to the rest of us, or a foreign power, or whatever you have that's living. But when you suddenly have a pathogen introduced, you could have your loving mother come over from across town from the city, and you'd be thinking to yourself, who did she see in the way here? Especially if you have kids, or you care more about yourself or whatever. Your thinking sort of changes differently. And what I want to say is that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're all in the same boat and how to, like Mitch said, in terms of preventing infection. Don't let it run away with you, if that makes sense. Don't, because you may find out your neighbors aren't your neighbors anymore, or maybe even your family's not your family that's not in your own home. And people really come out of the woodwork because, again, it's something you can't necessarily see, and also you have to make some sort of concessions in your head that, man, if I get this, I may not survive. Even if the mortality rate is indeed only 2%, even if it's let's just say it's like 8%. But even then, your mind might think, like, even if you're a healthy young man or a woman, you might be like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? Because there's no button. You remember I talked about button pushing? There's no button you can push, unfortunately, when you get sick to make it all go away. You can do treatments. If it's bacterial, you can take antibiotics. But if it's viral, you just pretty much take care of the symptoms and tough it out. And there's kind of a intrinsic fear, I guess, of death, or whatever you want to call it, that really strikes the average person. And when you're prepping for that, you kind of have to deal with that yourself, because you may find that in your own house, there may not be people as mentally prepared as you. You may have to, force yourself to be a leader. if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I just realized something that we kind of glossed over, symptoms and transmission and stuff like that. So I want to pull up real quick that and list a few of them, and you guys feel free to add in anything I missed. But we're looking at virus causing pneumonia, coughing, fever, breathing difficulties, and I guess in the severe cases, organ failure. It's a viral pneumonia, and apparently antibiotics are of no use. Antiviral drugs against flu will not work. And let's see, people need support for their lungs and other organs as well as fluids after admitted to hospitals. And then if, like you mentioned, Mitch, it's transmitted not just airborne, but through mucous membranes. Were there any other transmissions, or is that just about it?
I've heard that you can get it through feces to oral transmission. Not that any of us are going to be eating shit, but like if you flush a toilet, if you flush a toilet in a public area after going number 2, that could also send it airborne. But I'm not 100% on that.
All right, and that was something interesting.
Is it like that sexually transmitted disease? Is it like that sexually transmitted disease I caught while sitting on a toilet seat?
Thanks, man.
I've seen that episode of House.
The old toilet seat excuse.
I'm telling you, that's how I got it. That's how I got it.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems that this is basically it attacks the lungs before anything, or not before anything, but that's the main thing that's happening. Yeah, and they actually named it finally. So it's NCIP, which is novel coronavirus infectious pneumonia.
Okay.
So yeah, what was it? I think it's 2 to 10 days, average of like 5 days is incubation period. You can spread it asymptomatically.
Right.
While you're asymptomatic. And we know this for a fact because of a couple cases, but including one in particular early on was a lady who went from China to Germany, had a business meeting, then flew back to China. When she was back in China, or 25 hours later, something like that, she started to get her first symptoms. That guy she had a business meeting with in Germany contracted it while she was there. I think another person did who had direct contact with her too. And then 2 other people who were at the same business who didn't have any direct contact with her, but had contact with the 2 other Germans who did have contact with her, then caught it also. So it's definitely, it can definitely be spread easily.
Yeah. Sounds like very easily.
Controlling something that spreads while it's asymptomatic it's probably impossible. I think it's damage control at this point.
Yeah.
There was also the woman from China who went to France knowingly infected and bragged about it on social media, which thanks a fucking lot for that.
Yeah.
That's interesting too.
Yeah.
That someone would do that.
There's been a couple of those.
Sure. One thing I'm curious and worried about is the fact that a lot of meat from the United States is slaughtered and then sent to China for processing and then sent back. And I'm wondering if that is a way that it could be spread. There's already been all kinds of concerns with how they do that. They found supposed, because they inject it with water or other fillers in order to make it look more appetizing, more plump on the store shelves. And they said they found traces of sewage water and all kinds of nasty shit in the meat that comes back from China. I need to look further into exactly what companies are using that process and where the meat is, coming and going from. I think everybody should look that up if you're buying meat from the fucking grocery store right now, for sure. But I'm wondering if you guys know if it can spread that way, if you think it can, or what do you think about that?
Yes.
I'm afraid to eat my burgers now.
Yeah, I totally think it can, because they're saying it can survive on surfaces like metal, glass, or plastic for up to 9 days. Well, imagine frozen meat. I mean, it's going to last longer when it's in a cold environment.
Right.
I don't know about frozen. I would imagine it would frozen, at least for a period of time. But you generally, especially with coronaviruses, is the colder the environment, the longer it lasts outside a host. So, I mean, if you're sending meat over there, it gets on the meat and then they freeze the meat and bring it over, then it's probably the worst case scenario.
Right.
But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's another advantage to staying local. Sorry, go ahead, Dennis.
I was going to say, if it's possible for you, I mean, it is here. I'm in if you watch Always Sunny, I'm in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, but I have access to local butcher shops who use local meat. So, I mean, if you're talking about less exposure from outside meddling or something like that, you can go direct to somebody that, supplies it local if you're worried about meat and sort of storing it in a freezer. But I mean, if it's already here, at that point, let's hope you're stocked up. But I'm just saying, maybe if you can, try local for the interim. If you're worried about Chinese meat or American meat going to China and coming back.
Right. Which is good advice and a good way to do it anyways, even outside of the whole coronavirus thing. That just, feeds back into our usual prepping and building your communities and making your own kind of anarchy wherever you're at. The fuck's so funny, Daniel?
I was just thinking that some vegan or vegetarian's going to be watching this and like, yeah, see, I told you.
I'm talking about local sustainable meat. All right, local sustainable veggies are fine too, but the meats that can. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Our veggies aren't sent to China. They don't know that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
But on that note, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go for it.
I was just going to say, if you're prepping for that, definitely look into heirloom seeds that you can get the seeds from your fruits and vegetables that you can propagate that and keep it going. Because even if you have to, I'm sure you can build like a hydroponic in your basement if it's warm enough, and stock up a little later when it starts getting cold in like September, October, depending when your cold season sets in. But vegetables, even if you're worried about where they come from, because you can't really control the water or the quality conditions from which you can't physically go to the farm where you're getting your vegetables from the supermarket, if that makes sense. So if you want to be a little more stringent and put the legwork in, by all means.
Yeah.
But just another thing to consider in terms of like prepping. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. No, that's good. And it's a good thing we're on our way into spring, if not super close. We still got a little while in some places. That's really good rather than going into winter in a disaster scenario. But I know Mitch is pretty prepared because you're a foraging and a hunting kind of guy, and I'm really fucking happy that my wife is super into foraging as well. So she knows all about that stuff. We're going to hit it hard this year. But I think that's a good way to look at it, because not everybody, I mean, if you have never grown a garden before, having heirloom seeds, while a good idea, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to raise those plants, to grow those plants,
right,
and continue that on.
Right.
But anybody can forage.
Well, plus a lot of them you have to wait for.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, you got to wait a long time.
No, you're right. You might not see a payoff till like July, October.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With a whole lot of stuff. Yeah. All right.
I know there's here in my sorry.
Go ahead.
There's lag and it's
yeah.
I know in my little corner of Wisconsin, I was finding things that I could eat in the woods from anywhere from the middle of March to the middle of April, depending on the year, to November. Mm-hmm. So when you think of that, and that's, I mean, if you're near any decent sized woods, you can find that stuff if you educate yourself. Growing is a good idea. I mean, add it with the foraging, but don't rely just on growing. Because you gotta wait for a lot of that stuff, and you might fail at growing that stuff. Nature knows what it's doing. It's been growing this stuff forever. But definitely buy yourself a 22 and 22 ammo.
That's right.
Because that's like the best worst case scenario gun for finding meat.
Yeah.
I've noticed that 22 ammo is kind of, it's not the stock, the shelves aren't as stocked as they usually are, and I'm wondering if it's correlated to what's going on. When I look for N95 masks, they seem to be kind of gone too. So I'm just yeah, I don't know. Stock up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a timeline for preparedness, so it's all good stuff. You just got to, figure out your timeline in your climate zone and what your abilities are and practice more than just stockpiling everything. And you're 100% right with the 22. I would add on to that semi-auto or at least lever action, because I've had an old-ass single-shot bolt action forever, and side by side with somebody with a semi-auto or whatever, it's a world of difference, even though it's on the gnat's ass accurate.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right. I would say practice too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, go out and practice. Find a squirrel. See if you can like survive a weekend. Find a squirrel or rabbit or something, and practice and see how long you can survive.
Yeah.
Bring some water, learn and make a fire, and just kind of practice. That's what I do. And just just push yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buy conibear traps.
Oh,
They're cheap. They're cheap,
Yes.
and it's like a super easy way to get meat, especially squirrels. I love squirrel. I love ground squirrel. You get one burger. It's about a half-pound burger out of one squirrel.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
That's the way to do it. All right.
And yeah, the conibear traps are the easiest way.
Nice. All right. So we're coming up to the end of the hour. I'm going to go clockwise here with any last words. You're kind of winding down too. Dennis, go for it. You got anything else on it?
No, I would say as far as like since we're going on 22s and stuff, check out like Ruger makes a 1022. It's semi-automatic. There are a ton of, it's a bit like Glock, but there are a ton of aftermarket parts and like really hyper specialized expensive parts that you can shove into one if you're looking for a better squirrel or small varmint animal killing machine. Unfortunately, I don't think that's an ammo you can reload yourself. Don't hold me to that, but I think rimfire you can't reload. Other than that, just stick with like what I said. Your mind may change. Just don't lose yourself to paranoia and everything else. Try to keep a cool head because people around you may not.
Right on.
And it's scary, but that's pretty much it for me.
Nice. What you got, Mitch?
Back to the 22 thing real quick. Buy something that's a breakdown that you might be able to shove into a big backpack or whatever. Because if you're in a semi-urban environment and you need to get around and there's no gas, which is one of the first things that went away in Wuhan. If you need food and you're desperate and you got to travel and you got to go through areas, you're not going to be wanting to carry a rifle around in plain sight. But as for closing, I think it's more serious than our media is letting on. I'm tired of them comparing it to the flu. It's not the flu. I think it's going to come here. I think it is here already because of the 5 million people that left China prior to them, stopping flights. Like he said, get mentally prepared. Don't freak out. Just get mentally prepared. I think everyone's going to know at the same time when things are bad. No one will know until everyone knows. So,
for sure.
Good luck.
Hell yeah, good stuff. Dan, what you got?
I was just gonna say, coordinate with your neighbors. get to know them. So when shit goes down, you know, you have those people to rely upon to help protect yourself and your kids. Stock up on ammo, practice shooting, and stock up on food storage, and rotate it. Food storage is no good if you're not rotating it. So, and yeah, learn how to make a fire, that kind of stuff. But you may have to, you know, walk away from what you have now.
Yep. It's interesting that we all kind of came down to preparing for the long-term disaster. I think that's in the back of all of our heads, whether it's coronavirus, Boogaloo, who knows what. But it's good, and it's good that we keep bringing that up on this show in particular. As far as the coronavirus stuff, I'm trying to avoid areas where I know it is. Obviously, I'm not planning any trips to Seattle, anything like that. Trying to keep clean. And even in the event that it doesn't go long term and you don't have to go survive in the woods or whatever, it's good to be prepared for, 3 months at the minimum of food and water storage at the home at all times, because that's just regular preparedness for natural disaster, anything, when the grid could go down, anything like that. Keep an eye on the media. And with that being said, don't trust everything that the media puts out there. These guys have looked into a whole lot of different stuff. I am going to be doing more of that myself. And, sometimes 4chan is the place that you have to turn, these unregulated message boards and stuff like that, when everybody else is full of shit. And hopefully you can sort out the good info from the bad there. And hopefully there's good pictures, timestamps, any of that stuff. Basically, look through all the information you can get your hands on and try to figure out what you trust and don't trust, and be ready. And with that, thank you guys for joining me on episode 71 of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. If you like the show and you want to support it, please check out patreon.com/thedankpodstash. I would really appreciate that, or just a like, subscribe, download on the podcatchers, any of that. The usual exit, total freedom, no exceptions. Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash is sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. Go to anarchyliftingcoaching.com to learn more.